years ago, I quit social media cold turkey. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, you name it, deleted. And while overall this was an extremely positive life decision, not every part of the experience was positive. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. So in this video, I want to talk about the good, the bad, and if you stick around to the end, I'll give you my best tips if you want to make a similar decision yourself, and even if I think it makes sense for you to quit, depending on your situation. So if this is something you've thought about before, maybe you're kind of questioning your relationship with social media and you want to see what it might be like to live without it, this is a good video for you. First, let's talk about why did I actually quit? I mean, we've all heard about the dangers of social media. I think we've all kind of experienced times where maybe our use of social media hasn't felt so great, or maybe you've noticed kind of a negative impact on your life, but maybe aren't quite sure exactly how to place that feeling. I think the Social Dilemma documentary kind of summed it up really well when they talked about how if you are using a platform and it is free, then you are the product. They are making money off of you. It is your attention that they are making money off of. And for me personally, just thinking about how my attention was being hijacked, the way these apps are designed are to be as addictive as possible. They want you to get sucked in there. They want you to keep scrolling. They're preying on the way our brain chemistry works of wanting those constant dopamine hits of scrolling and seeing. And so they kind of use that to gamify the experience, and they make it so that you always want to see more. And then when you combine that with the fact that it really leads to so much comparison, it leads you to seeing so many different people's lives, but not a real version of their lives, just the airbrushed version. So we come to expect or have unrealistic expectations of what our life should look like, of what we should look like. It preys on insecurities. You're constantly comparing yourself to people and things that, have no real basis in reality. And then to make it worse, they prey on those insecurities by selling you stuff. So you spend time on social media, you start to feel bad about a certain aspect of yourself or your life, and then you're pushed a product that can supposedly fix it. So kind of the combination of these things, when you think about your time is the thing that they are monetizing, they're making you feel bad about yourself, and then they're selling you stuff to try and make you feel better. It's just a really vicious cycle. So that's kind of one component of it. The component for me that really hit home personally was I realized how much of my brain energy was being hijacked by social media. I think kind of the turning point for me, and this is honestly feels like an embarrassing story to tell, but I think a lot of us can relate to it. I was on a trip having a great time, taking some pictures as you do, because you want to remember it, maybe post about it later. And I remember going back from whatever thing I was doing that day on this wonderful trip and not liking how I looked in any of the photos that I took that day. And that completely colored my experience of the trip, because instead of thinking, oh, what an amazing experience, it was, I don't have a nice enough picture to post on Instagram about this experience. And so therefore this experience wasn't as good as I thought. And when I say that out loud, it sounds ridiculous, right? There's no reason to be thinking like that. There's no reason that our life experience should be hijacked by something so superficial. And I'm not saying that everybody uses a platform in this way. I'm just saying it's really easy to get sucked into this trap of thinking we have to portray a certain image of our life because that's all we see on there. And it really leads to, I think, the loss of authentic and genuine enjoyment in the moment for so many things. So I think when I experienced that, it was kind of a wake-up call of like, oh, whoa, this is not good. This is not healthy. This is not how I want to live my life, purely for the validation that I'm trying to seek from others. So that was kind of the turning point where I thought, okay, I'd thought about setting time limits and all of that in the past, and it wasn't super effective. I was like, what if I just delete it? Like, what's the worst that could happen, right? So one day I just decided I'm gonna delete my Instagram, my Facebook, my Snapchat. I don't think I ever had a Twitter, so that was it. Just deleted everything. And it was definitely an adjustment at first. It was a big change from seeing so many different people's lives all the time and sharing my own experiences to not having an outlet for that. So definitely a transition period, but that was kind of the why, like what led me to make that decision. Okay, so now that we've covered why I decided to make that decision to quit social media, I want to talk about what the experience actually has been over the last 4 years. What has the impact been on my life? What's the good, what's the bad, why do I actually recommend it? So before I jump into all the benefits and telling you more about how this experience without social media has completely changed my brain chemistry, I do want to talk about a few of the potential drawbacks that you might experience if you make a similar move, because I think it's important to have the whole picture. And overall, I say this was a very positive thing for me, but there are certain things you kind of notice when you take away this entire category of social connection. So at its core, I do believe that social media has a lot of positive potential if you're able to use it positively. I am not a person who apparently was able to use it constructively. I definitely fell way deep down in the rabbit hole of the comparison trap and the, consumerism and so many other things that just didn't really add a benefit to my life. But I think if you're the type of person who is able to actually just use it for socialization, staying in touch with people, these are the things that you'll miss the most. At first is kind of how you lose that sphere of your social network that's kind of like not your close friends who you're texting on a regular basis, but those maybe friends of friends or colleagues or people that you meet while you're traveling or people that you'd like to keep up with because you like them and you're curious about how their life is going and you'd like an easy way to reach out to them if you want to. Social media makes this a lot easier, right? Like you think of a lot of occasions where there's someone you might want to kind of stay in touch with, follow up about their life, but getting their phone number and like texting them might not make a ton of sense because, we only have so much capacity and usually that's kind of what you do with a closer group of friends. So I'd say you do lose a good bit of context on the broader set of acquaintances in your life and you don't really get that general casual bystander keeping up with their life effect that you do when you have social media. So that's definitely something I've missed. There's no really easy way to casually stay in touch with somebody. That kind of relates to my next point, which is about birthdays and remembering important life milestones. So this is something I've definitely had to get a lot more intentional about because you would be shocked at how much you rely on things like social media to remind you of birthdays and important milestones. So when you lose it, there's a bit of an adjustment period where you've got to make your own birthday calendars and kind of keep up to date with all those sorts of things. So I say it definitely takes a lot more intentionality to stay in touch with people. And so the possibility to delete all your social media and then end up maybe a little bit lonelier is definitely real as well, because unless you were actively reaching out to people one-on-one, there's definitely less occasion for you to have those social interactions. Apart from that though, to be honest with you, I didn't really notice any particular negatives. One other thing to keep in mind is that if you just delete social media and go cold turkey, kind of like I did, you're gonna have to find something to replace that behavior with, because just getting rid of it isn't gonna change your brain's desire for those dopamine hits, for those scrolling, for the social interaction, like whatever it is you were using social media for, your brain still wants that. So you're gonna need to find something else to occupy your time, if you wanna read or find a hobby or whatever it is you might wanna do, just be aware that the desire is still gonna be there and it's gonna take a long time for you to kind of break that habit. Apart from that though, I'd say things were pretty positive. So now that we've kind of covered those negatives, I want to jump into what were the biggest benefits. Why do I think this was worth it? Why have I kept it up for over 4 years? The first one being that you really get your brain back. Like I was kind of talking about earlier, these platforms are designed to hijack our brains. They're designed to change the way we think, to influence the way we think, to make us feel bad about ourselves, to make us want to buy stuff that we don't need, to compare ourselves to others that we really have no business making comparisons with, because that's not even a real version of them. So once you take away all of that input, you really get a lot of your own free will back. And there's so many different things that this impacts. I'll start with like the most surface level, superficial. My experience was getting a more positive self-image. Like when you reduce the amount of comparison you're making to other people, to what media in the world is telling you should look like, you should dress like, you should be like, you start to gain more of an appreciation for who you are. You start to notice fewer insecurities. Like I feel like on social media, there's a new thing every week that you didn't even know you were supposed to be insecure about. And all of a sudden here it is. And these influencers are telling you that it's a problem. So if you lose that input, you really start to appreciate who you are a little bit more. It takes time and this requires, active work. But I think one of the biggest benefits in that regard is that you just lose a lot of that insecurity because you're not being bombarded with constant messaging about how what you are is not enough. So that's a really big benefit. If we go a little bit deeper, what removing that comparison does is help you kind of figure out what you actually want. I feel like I've gotten a lot more clarity of vision into thinking about, what is it I actually want to do with my life? What are the things that are valuable for me? How do I want to spend my time? What do I want to spend my money on? That's a lot more dictated by myself and my experiences than it is by what somebody online is trying to sell me, or by some expectation that I'm comparing myself to because I see it pushed by somebody on social media. And I just want to put in here, it feels like an important time to say, like, I still do have, of course, like input from the outside world, like on YouTube, on TV, like you can never escape all of these things. But when you're not spending your day scrolling through a feed specifically curated to hijack your brain, it does get better. Another benefit I've noticed is the ability to be a lot more in the moment with trips, with experiences. That example I was talking about at the beginning where my experience was colored by the quality of the photo that I got, that doesn't happen anymore. And you stop thinking about your life in the form of how you're documenting it and how it might look, and you start thinking about it and how you're actually experiencing it and how it feels. Because if there's nowhere public that you're constantly sharing every little bit of your life or consuming every little bit of other people's lives, you actually get to think about what's actually fun in the moment instead of just what's aesthetic or what somebody online might appreciate. So that's another huge benefit that I've noticed. And if you find yourself not feeling very present, if you find yourself feeling like your brain is kind of wired to think about how your life looks and how you can portray it to other people more than how you actually want it, this is a benefit you'll probably perceive as well. Another really big benefit I've noticed is time. Like, you do get a lot of time back. Take a look at your screen time and see just how much time you're spending on social media each day. It's probably a lot more than you expect. And if that's the case, that is not your fault. That is literally because it's designed to suck as much time out of your day as possible. But if you kind of think about like, what else could I do with that time? And you don't necessarily have to put that into something super productive. Like, I'm not saying that all the time is wasted. Like, we do need time to wind down. We do need time for our brains to relax, but could that look like something else that may serve you better, right? Could that be reading? Could that be being outside? Could that be actually talking to your friend on the phone? So you really do get time back to focus on other things. And again, like when your brain isn't so hijacked by social media, I feel like it really allows you to think more for yourself and more about what you want than the messages you're being fed all day. So those are kind of like the high level benefits I experienced: getting my brain back, getting my time back, improved self-image, more of a focus on things that I want to do and less being swayed by those external inputs, and then also being able to better shape my days and my life to how I want it to be instead of how I think it should look online. And honestly, I kind of expected most of those benefits. Like, it makes a lot of sense. If you think about the downsides of social media and then you think about removing it, like those are kind of the positive things I expected. But there were a few unexpected benefits as well, like things that I didn't really see coming. And that is when I actually connect with people in person or over the phone, I feel like we have much more genuine, authentic conversations. And the reason being is we don't know what's going on in each other's lives. I haven't seen them on social media. Obviously, they haven't seen me. So if you think about people who share regularly, you see pretty much every part of their life all the time. And so you meet up in person and there's not that much new going on. You kind of already know what's happening. But if you haven't seen any of that, maybe you haven't seen them in 6 months, there's so much to talk about. It feels a lot more genuine. You can actually share what you want to. You can kind of get into those deeper topics. It's not just like a surface level catch up of like, oh, I kind of know what you've been up to, but like, what's new? There's actually room for having those more meaningful conversations. So that's something I've really appreciated and enjoyed, I would say, instead of having that insight into people's lives every single day and, you know, they don't know what I'm up to. When I actually get to talk to them, there's something new and it feels like a real strong connection. So now that we've kind of gone over the drawbacks and the benefits of this experience, I kind of want to give my overall verdict on, was it worth it? Do I think you should do it? For me, I would say 100%. Honestly, any of those benefits by themselves would pretty much make it worth it, but I truly, truly, truly do not want to be someone who is just controlled by the media, by these platforms, by the messaging that is being fed to me. I think a lot of us are more impressionable than we realize. And if you are somebody who does kind of want to dictate the path of your own life and not be swayed so much by what's being shown to you on these platforms that are really just trying to sell you things, I think this is a really great decision because I've gotten so much more self-direction back. I've gotten so much more confidence. I've gotten so much more of an idea of what I want out of my life. So I would say in that regard, yes, 100% a fantastic decision. The difficulties of keeping up with acquaintances and stuff like that is still something that I think about. If I ever do get back on social media, that might be a reason. Another kind of drawback that I don't think I mentioned is that you have less of like a photo diary to look back on. So if you're somebody who uses social media to capture key moments of your life, to, share those things as you go, it's kind of nice to be able to look back and kind of see a timeline of all those highlights of your life in one place. I have like 30,000 photos on my camera roll, a little bit harder to go through. So instead of having a curated version available, you kind of feel a little bit more all over the place. But what I would say is if you're considering making a similar decision and you're just not sure if it's right for you, I would say, first of all, if you're somebody who is good at using social media in moderation, if you don't feel that comparison envy, if you don't feel like you fall into the marketing traps, if you truly use it as a tool to catch up with people, share photos of your life, and you're kind of in and out and it's not something that consumes a lot of your thoughts, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I truly don't. I think it's a wonderful thing that can impact our lives positively in so many ways if you can use it like that. But if you're in what I believe to be the majority of people who can't use it productively, where the negatives outweigh the benefits, where it really is hijacking your brain, where it's making you feel bad about yourself, where it's making you change your behaviors based on how you want to be perceived, where it's making you buy stuff that you don't need, where it's making you cultivate superficial relationships, where it's making you feel more lonely than connected. If any of those things applies to you and you have trouble moderating your time on these platforms and moderating how much it impacts your thoughts, I absolutely think it is worth taking a break at the very least. Deactivating your profile is possible, deleting it completely is possible, whatever level you think makes sense for you. I would say just don't underestimate the amount of impact it's currently having on your life. And having spent 4 years off of the platform and seeing people around me and their experiences on the platform, it's worth considering making that jump. So in conclusion, I would say for the vast majority of people, I would recommend it. At the very least, take a break, see how that feels, see how your life experience changes, and then make an educated decision from there. But overall, hugely positive experience. I truly think it's changed the way that my brain works, and I could not be more grateful for my past self for making that decision. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if this is something you would consider or if this is something you've done before. And if you know anybody who's maybe thinking about taking a break from social media or has kind of discussed this with you before, send them this video. I think this might be a good kind of overview of what the experience has been like for somebody who's done it. But thank you so much. Please subscribe and have a great day.